welcome to the late March meeting. We'll have the pledge led by Commissioner Terry Morrow.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If anybody has their cell phones on, please turn them off or silence them. And Commissioner Kolars is participating in this meeting electronically, and the other four of us are present. So, could we have a motion for approval of the agenda as written?
There is an amendment, I believe.
I have two additions.
Okay.
Under administration to add a resolution regarding warrants and contracts, and then a resolution to be added regarding the payment of employees in a shelter-in-place situation.
Okay.
Move the approval.
I'll move
of
it,
the agenda.
Mr. Chair.
What Jack say?
Commissioner Kohler's
Move
motion.
the agenda as
I'll second it.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Human Resources.
Consent agenda.
I'm sorry. Now we have to do the consent agenda.
Kemp moves the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Thank you. Now we go to Human Resources.
And as Jamie's getting ready here, we did suspend new employee introductions, but today is the first day of employment for Jamie's new assistant, Susan. I already forgot Sunderland. Sorry. We didn't want to leave her alone, stuck back there on her first day, so we did have her bring her in so she could see what
Good morning.
Good morning,
Welcome.
Susan. Welcome.
Thank you.
what we do here of each.
Did we want to get a couple words from her? Or?
Sure, Susan, you want to just give a quick snapshot of your background, just where you're from, where you've worked, that type of thing?
I grew up in Stanton. If you don't know where that is, it's right
All right.
in Mechanics Falls in Northville. And I have worked for Cabela's for almost 18 years. And then I was currently at WISPAC for a little over 4. I have about 25 to 30 years experience in the human resources field.
And she lives here in St. Peter, so.
I
Well,
just recently moved.
Well, thank you. Welcome to Nicollet
Welcome
County.
to Nicollet County. Yeah.
Hope you get a lifetime discount at Cabela's.
I do not.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff. I am here presenting on a number of items today. The first is on the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So on Wednesday, March 18th, President Trump did sign H.R. 6201, which is also known as the Families First Coronavirus Act. This act provides 2 provisions with regard to paid time off during the COVID pandemic. The first is emergency paid sick leave that allows up to 80 hours of paid time off for 6 different reasons. That policy is in front of you, and on the first page, those 6 bullets are the 6 reasons that someone could use this emergency leave. In addition, the second provision provides up to 10 weeks of paid leave under the Family and Medical Leave Act. And it's specifically for only one reason that it can be used, and that's for an employee who is unable to work or telework due to a need for leave to care for their child that's under 18 years of age if the school or place of care has been closed or the child care provider of such child is unavailable due to the public health emergency. The provision for the family medical leave actually provides for a total of 12 weeks. The first 2 weeks are unpaid. However, employees can substitute that emergency paid leave or their own paid leave for those 2 weeks. And then the subsequent 10 weeks would be paid. So under the Act, employees would be paid at 2/3 of their regular rate of pay, and it is capped. There's 2 different caps. One is $511 a day, one is $200 a day, and it depends on the reason why they're out, which cap you would apply. So it applies to both of the provisions, but we are recommending that we waive that portion of the act and instead provide full pay to our staff. There's a number of reasons for that. Administratively, it would be very difficult to track and manage who's out for what reason and what should we be capping and how are we capping it. That is one difficulty. And they're more than likely also, if we provide the cap, we'll probably also substitute some of their sick or vacation so that they are kept whole. Again, adding some additional strain to our payroll staff in processing that. So the act also needs to be in place by April 2nd, but we're recommending that it also be put in place immediately. We already have staff who are quarantined at home because they have sick individuals in their house. So we already have people who could be taking advantage of the policy currently. So it's my recommendation that we adopt the act with the two provisions that want it be put in place immediately, and that we provide full pay to our staff. And I'd be happy to answer questions.
Any questions?
Yes. Was the capping and the 2/3 pay, was there a change in withholding then too? Much like a work comp claim, or was that not clearly defined?
And I didn't see any details on that piece, so I'm not 100%
So
sure
there
on
was no
that.
financial incentive one way or the other. Thank you.
I don't think so.
Yes, Terry?
I think there may not be FICA withholding on this.
Okay.
And I think perhaps full-time employees, and maybe it's different for our county government, so you can correct me, Jamie, that they're to get their regular rate of pay when they self-quarantine pursuant to a government order or healthcare provider advice, or they are getting treatment for COVID and the like. So I thought for some place it already was full. I agree, as a county, let's
Yes.
do as you propose.
Yeah, there was one provision that allowed for full pay, but the language is confusing on if it applies and when it applies and what exactly that reason has to be. There's been HR directors that have been trying to define it ourselves as well.
It's a moving
Okay.
target a little bit, trying
Yeah.
to understand it. But I would move is it a resolution or a motion?
Yeah, it's, because it's federal law, we have to do it. It's just that what we're asking the board is to accept it with the changes as Jamie presented, which are above and beyond
Yeah,
what's.
which are employee-friendly changes.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
You're making that
So
motion?
I make that motion.
Second.
Question, I know this is early in the game, but is this what other counties are doing, or don't we have any idea yet?
I haven't heard from other counties speaking to how they're handling the pay piece yet. We've just been talking about developing a policy and getting this in front of boards as soon as we can. I would imagine that some counties will provide full pay. I know there's other counties that already had planned to provide 2 weeks of pay prior to this even coming out.
Okay.
So I'm sure they'll follow suit with that as well.
That'd be a better question for 2 weeks from now, or something, for sure.
I don't think my position would change regardless.
Okay.
So,
Any other?
Yeah, again, it's federal law, so all
Right.
counties will have to do it. It's just
Right.
the pay piece, which a lot of counties, especially right now,
Are making
not-
it whole.
are not set up to accommodate this type of
Right.
change in the payroll system. So quite honestly, the time that would be spent trying to figure that out, we're better off just making full payment.
right.
Jack, do you have any questions?
No, I'm watching on YouTube, and I think the YouTube is a little bit behind, so I think it's important that we take this step, and I would endorse the motion.
So we had a motion and a second, but is this a resolution or?
Nope.
No,
Just
okay.
a motion.
Okay, all in
Just a
favor?
motion. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Jack voted aye.
Right here at the end there.
I gotta remember, there's a little time delay between.
Yep, okay.
The-
Jamie, you have another subject?
Yes, the next policy is the utilization of paid leave during a public health emergency policy. So this would be an extension of the Families First Act that we just discussed. This was provided to commissioners a little over a week ago, but we did make some modifications based on the Families First Act. This policy would provide the ability for staff to go negative in their sick time balances of up to 80 hours for reasons that are related to COVID-19. In addition, it has a new provision that we added that allows employees in good standing who stay with the county for 1 year following the end of the declared emergency will have 40 hours of negative accrual forgiven, and employees in good standing who stay with the county 2 years following the end of the declared emergency will have an additional 40 hours of negative accrual forgiven. Of course, in the event that the employee separates before either of those forgiveness periods, whatever amount negative they still have remaining, they will be responsible for repaying that. But we did add the provision that we would forgive the hours if they stay employed with us.
In essence, it's a hold a harmless clause to them, right?
Correct.
I'd move the motion. Make the motion, I'm sorry.
I'll second it, but then I have a question.
Yes, questions, please.
Sorry, I don't know this. Is it the end of the declared emergency by the governor? So when the governor declares the end, I don't know whose declaration triggers it.
In the policy, we specifically outline that it's in coordination between HR, Ryan, and the Health and Human Services Director
Okay.
to decide when that date occurs.
Okay, so we have choice.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
The provision for the forgiveness of hours after the fact over a 2-year period is something that we got from Hennepin County. They have put this forward for their staff, and I anticipate other counties doing this or other things to try to ease the situation. We do have a large number of employees that have a lower amount of sick leave balance or sick in vacation because we have so many new employees with retirements. In fact, we have 90 employees, so 1/3 of our work staff with 80 hours or less sick time, and 50 employees with a combined sick and vacation balance of less than 80. So we've got a significant number of people that, in worst case scenario, could go negative, and this would help them dig out.
Correct. In addition, almost every county in our region is passing this particular policy. We added the provision on the forgiveness. I'm sure others will jump on that bandwagon, but this policy is, everyone's passing this one, is what they're recommending, so.
This was basically a policy developed for H1N1 that many counties used and is being brought back on the books again.
Yep.
Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Thank you. Passes.
Thank you.
You have another telecommuting
Yes.
update?
One last item here. Again, another policy. Somewhat of a timely policy. We've been discussing telecommuting for the last year and handful of months. We had a pilot program in 2019 with 4 or 5 individuals, and we're able to iron out most of the wrinkles in the process and come up with a full encompassing policy. We did discuss this at our board workshop, but in general, the goal of our telecommuting policy is to increase employee productivity, improve employee engagement, reduce employee absenteeism, improve recruitment by being progressive, reduce the costs of office space, and what we're using today, improve disaster recovery and contingency strategy where a dispersed workforce is advantageous. So we have quite a few people that are actually taking advantage of this already with the pandemic, and it's been, for the most part, working pretty well. And it's, again, been very advantageous for us to have people dispersed and not all here in working together in the building. So the policy was included, and I know we've reviewed it, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Well, one thing, without the internet, you wouldn't be doing that. So, questions for Jamie?
I would make a motion to accept the telecommunications policy.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie, for
Jamie, thank you for having us.
everybody's work, and
We know you've been busy.
I'd add to that, Dale, and trying to make all of that happen, and so we're very proud of all your work, so thank you very much for
Great.
that.
Thank you.
So, Ryan?
Yes.
you up?
Thank you. First item up today is a contract to complete a broadband feasibility study with the engineering services of Finley Engineering and Company. In the packet is a proposal from Finley Engineering to complete a broadband study for Nicollet County. Total cost would be $48,000. Commissioner Drannell and Commissioner Kemp and myself met with Finley Engineering to review the proposal, and I believe we all had a good impression of what they were bringing forward. They've got a lot of experience doing these studies in Minnesota. They're based out of Slayton, so they're fairly close. They have done the studies for Blue Earth and the Sewer County, so they're very familiar with this region. And we would recommend that the board approve this contract. There are some language changes that Michelle and I still need to get hammered out with Finley on the contract, but we would do that before turning it over to them.
Question for you, isn't the grant gonna pay for part of this?
Yeah, so, thank you for reminding me that. Of the cost, we received a $25,000 grant from the Blandon Foundation to pay for this, and then the balance would be the county's contribution plus whatever in kind.
So 23, 24.
Of
Okay.
cash and then in kind.
Okay. Any motions?
I would make the motion to accept the contract as when it reaches the expectations of our county attorney and administrator.
I would second that. We had a really nice meeting with them, and they are number junkies all the way, I guess is the best
Right.
description.
Very
So
much.
I think we're gonna get a good product in the end. They were very enthusiastic and
Well, and they've done it. I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
issue of this, that they're using current technology, they have done the design build stuff, so they know what it takes to make it work. Plus, the other partner in this can also provide, good information about what kind of an economic model there can be in this. And so potentially it would be something that would have value going forward to potential vendors that might choose to supply the resources.
And Ryan did poll the township officers in what, November about this?
Yes.
Yeah, at the meeting.
Yeah, and a great majority of them wanted us to go ahead
Yep.
with this.
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Well, I would add, I think the recent days have showed us how important broadband access is for telehealth, for education, for business.
Yes.
If nothing, we're learning even more how reliant we may be.
Exactly.
Motion already?
Yeah,
we did.
yeah. Motion is second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is bids for the North Mankato building remodeling project. We received bids, and there's a handout in your blue folders here with the bid tabulations for all of the bidders. We received bids for all categories with multiple bids in 3 of the 4 categories. This would be for just the exterior portion of the building, so the roof being redone, new metal on the building, some tuck pointing and masonry work, and all new windows. Total bids came in at $294,159, which was $38,274 under the estimate. So I would recommend the board approve the low bids as presented for this project and authorize myself to sign the contracts with the approved bidders.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any more discussion? Question I have is, as far as we know, this company is a good company to deal with and everything,
Which
the
company?
low bid.
Well,
Well,
you've
we got several low bidders here.
But they're all ones we've done business with before, I think,
It-
except
Yeah,
Joff, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It looks like they're all pretty much local.
Yep.
Okay.
St. Peter Glass has gotten all of our bids on
Mhm.
projects. Ballman Roofing's local.
Okay.
Goff, I believe, is local too, right? Danny?
I think so, but I don't remember. I
Yeah.
really don't.
So there's no concerns. Our construction managers work with all these folks
Good,
too.
good. I was a little amazed at the difference in the bids.
Yeah.
That's about how bad you want the work.
Right.
So, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Okay, next item is COVID-19 pandemic emergency declaration. I'll have our emergency management director, Justin Block, come up too, because he'll have some comments here. I believe that declaration is in your blue folder as well. It essentially, we are already currently under a state and federal declaration. And so we are covered for any state and federal assistance that should come down, but Justin can explain what this could provide potentially in the future for Nicollet County.
Good morning, everyone. I yesterday sent an email to my RPC at the state asking for a little clarification on why counties are doing it locally. And the answer I did receive was it was to circumvent otherwise lengthy purchasing processes. That's the reason why they're seeing all the local agencies also declaring on top of the other two that Ryan had explained.
It allows you to act, or the county to act, in a way that needed resources can be had without the elaborate bidding
Correct.
process. Is that correct?
Yeah, potentially, depending on what would come of this.
Right.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, I'd move the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
If I could just ask, and I don't know, just as for
Go
you or
ahead.
for Ryan, is there any, other than declaring an emergency, a state of emergency, as we're doing here, for the purpose of facilitating purchasing, is there any other effect, will folks in the counties feel any effect now that we've made this declaration?
I don't believe so. Justin and I have talked, and because there is a state and federal declaration already, that means that should state and federal funds become available for the county in the future, which I anticipate happening, we're already have that covered. This is more or less a stamp of approval, and then also allows an expedition of purchasing.
If I might, Mr. I just want to be real clear, I don't want anyone interpreting this to be a shelter in place or
No.
something else. It doesn't mean that at all.
No.
Not at all.
Any more? Marie? So, ready for the roll then? Call the roll.
Kemp,
Yes.
Morrow,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Jeno,
Yes.
Kolars,
Yes,
Passes.
Any other updates, Justin, from the emergency management world? Justin is, of course, our emergency manager, and Jason Meniger, is that right?
Yep.
Is our assistant emergency manager, so they have, of course, been working around the clock, and after all this is done, we'll have endless more meetings on analyzing this and determining how we can fight this in the future. If this
Just
ever
trying to
happens
keep
again.
up with what everybody's doing, and
I just have one question. Granted, and I know you and your staff and everyone is very busy with this, but another spring thing that's upon us, what are we hearing from the hydrologists about? It looks like we're gonna be okay.
we've
but-
had a very easy melt so far. It could have been a lot worse.
Right.
The river actually is looking quite, I mean, I don't wanna jinx everybody, but it's looking a lot better. And now they're, of course, calling for some more here come the end of the week, but the ground is very, very saturated. Everybody knows from last fall, but at my winter conference, they were saying how everybody was gonna be flooded out and it was gonna be a terrible spring for it, but as everybody knew, we got those couple 50, 60-degree days there that got rid of all the snow, and now it refroze, and we're sitting good at
Yeah.
this point.
Good, appreciate
I
that.
think the frost is pretty well gone, so some will go into the soil.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things that we have things on top of each other, and I just wanna make sure that we're.
We're
doing
watching that as well.
I know you are, but
Yes.
If I could just ask you, going back to the COVID-19 situation, could you just give us an update, or are there things you want the public to know in Nicollet County? And is there anything we could be doing to help you out?
I guess listen to what they're saying, stay home. If you're sick, stay home. And, I mean, the document, it's out there to show that that one person that is sick that travels around and doesn't really care about anybody else is gonna spread this. It's a very, very contagious virus that's going around, and people just need to stay home. That's what can help us the most to get over this thing and flatten the curve.
I think we
We already did the resolution.
Okay. So we up to the county buildings?
We are. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Next item for the board is a resolution to close county buildings due to the COVID-19 pandemic emergency. In your packet is a resolution to that effect, and of course it would be retroactive to March 19th of last week. As we all know, things rapidly progressed with this pandemic, and Nicollet County, as well as many counties in the state, I don't know if it's every county, I don't think every county yet, but a majority have taken this action to close buildings and alter services for the public to help address the pandemic and really for everybody's best welfare and health to avoid contact with each other. So I have a resolution, it's Minnesota Statute 373052 authorizes this action for the county board to close buildings in an event of an emergency. The resolution states that this closure would extend until further notice. The board would take action to essentially lift this closing, and that the public may still enter county buildings, this building here, for court, probation, and law enforcement services, or as authorized or deemed necessary by myself or a county department head.
Mr.
Chair,
Chair,
Jack
Yes.
Colars here. I'll move the resolution, or I'll move the action. I have a question.
I'll second the resolution.
Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ryan or others in attendance, can you tell me what the reaction has been from our citizens and folks who are working at the county on a daily basis? Give me a sense of how people are responding.
Sure, Mr. Chair. We have had individuals here in the government center still try to come get license tabs, and that seems to be the biggest concern for folks. We've turned those folks away and are reminding them that they can purchase those tabs through the mail still, and that's what they should do. Other than that, the public has responded very well, and there's enough news and media attention on this out there that most folks are complying with this closure. It's an adjustment certainly for staff in the delivery of services. We are trying to provide services in different ways now through electronic forms, over the phone, email, that sort of thing, instead of face-to-face contact. But so far we are able to do that in most instances. So there is service delivery still occurring to the best of our ability considering the situation.
My name, Mr. Chair, just to follow up, and I thank you for that, Ryan. So, you're not hearing or seeing any other negative impacts? I'm not suggesting that there should be, but some people get nervous.
Yes, I think there certainly is a sense of nerves with some folks and concern, but I'm certainly not seeing panic by citizens or staff at this point. And that's good. There's no reason to panic. But there will be a change for all of us in how we deliver services and how the citizens receive those services. But it will be temporary, and it shall pass.
Any other questions?
It was my understanding for those that are seeking DLs that the feds are going to be extending the whole issue on flight access. The real ID component is going to get extended, so the urgency for people to try and resolve that is not as intense as we would once think them to be.
But they haven't put a date on that, have they?
To my understanding, no, it was still in discussion, but it's my understanding that the October 2020 date is going to get moved out.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes?
The other piece of that is that there is also a standing order that expired tabs, expired driver's licenses, there's a pass for that right now as well. So the urgency that some people may be concerned about there is also temporarily alleviated.
Yes, thank you. Anything else?
If I may, Mr. Chair, regarding law
We've kept the sheriff's office public door open, for emergency purposes, so the public can still access there. I'm looking at our emergency manager in the audience right now, who also works for the sheriff's department, and no jail visits, correct?
They're all
That,
closed.
yeah, that's all been suspended at this point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
There are no visitations allowed. Court practices are still happening. If you're in custody, there is still court hearings on those individuals. But we've also had multiple discussions about bringing people in and out of the jail for arrests and warrants, et cetera.
Mr. Chair, I think I heard what the county attorney said. Could I have her repeat that?
There's been ongoing discussion relative to the individuals that are being arrested and ensuring that only those that present the danger to public safety are being taken into custody statewide, both at the DOC level as well as the local level. And there is no jail visitation going on.
Any more discussion? Ready to call the roll then? Ready to call the roll?
Kolar,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Morrow,
Yes.
Lippy,
Yes.
Johnner.
Of course, yes.
Mr. Chair, this was an agenda addition resolution for temporarily modifying procedures for the payment of commissioner warrants, approval of contracts, and approval of expenditures. This is, of course, in relation to the COVID pandemic, just so we are able to assure that we can continue with our essential functions and operations here at the county. I'm requesting the following modifications. That commissioner warrants may be approved by the county administrator or my designee and the finance director or her designee, should the board not meet. Commissioner warrants would still be emailed to the board for review. Budgeted contracts and expenses may be approved and signed by the county administrator or his designee regardless of the contract amount, where now those contracts come to the board. The county administrator or his designee may approve non-budgeted essential expenses up to $25,000. Right now, that threshold is $10,000. For unbudgeted essential expenses over $25,000, the county administrator or my designee would consult with the county board chair or vice chair before making those purchases. And again, this is just to assure that we can continue essential functions and operations.
Seems like a good idea.
I move the resolution, Mr. Chair.
I'll second. And Ryan, could you just say what a commissioner warrant is?
Sure. We have two different types of warrants. There's auditor warrants, which essentially is the finance director's warrants and bills that we pay that are regular bills that need to be paid on a regular schedule. And if we don't pay them, there's penalties and that sort of thing. So cell phone bills, credit card bills, utilities, that type of thing. Then there's all other warrants are considered commissioner warrants. So before they can be paid, the county board needs to review those and approve them, and then the check can be issued. And so every meeting, the county board approves commissioner warrants. This basically allows others to make that approval should that need arise.
It seems like a good idea.
Absolutely.
Call the roll?
Kemp,
Yes.
Morrow,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Johnner,
Yes.
Kolars.
Passes.
Yes.
Final item I have today is an agenda addition. It's a resolution approving the payment of employees impacted by a COVID-19 shelter-in-place order. Hopefully this doesn't happen, but should it happen, this would authorize the full payment of salaries and benefits to employees who have work hours reduced due to a shelter-in-place order from the COVID-19 pandemic. Employees who have work hours reduced due to the COVID-19 shelter-in-place order do not need to use paid leave to receive their full pay and benefits, and this resolution would remain in effect throughout the rest of the year. The reason I put that in there is we have all of those salaries and benefits budgeted already and accounted for. Should a shelter-in-place take place, we are we are largely considered essential services because almost everything we do involves health, safety, and welfare of the public. So this will have, a shelter-in-place order would have minimal impact on basically forcing people to stay home because many of our positions are essential. We possibly could have some positions that would impact, and in that event that we do have that, every effort will be made to allow those individuals to work from home, either with a computer, take paper files home. We also have the ability to allow staff to do professional development online through a contract we have in place, so that would be an expectation. Read professional development books, whatever it takes. In event of a real emergency, those individuals could also be called back to assist with public health or law enforcement should that need arise. So I don't anticipate having to send folks home with absolutely nothing to do, but should this happen, I think it's wise for us to assure that those individuals, especially because we do have so many individuals with limited leave balances, that they continue to get a paycheck to support their family.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And Ryan, I think you did this, but just to reiterate, every employee is important, substantial,
Yes.
significant.
Right.
Essential is a legal term.
Yes, essential is a term that's floated out during these emergencies. All of our employees are critical to our operations. Another term is out there now is critical infrastructure sector, which is a lot of what these shelter-in-places are focusing on, and that's guidelines put out by the federal government, and which we fall under many of those. But absolutely, we have everybody's an essential employee for what we do here. It's just because of these unique circumstances, we may have to alter the delivery of certain services.
Mr. Chair, I think, Colars here, I think it's infinitely important for our employees to feel safe and to receive their paychecks, whether it be when they're working remotely or on site. So I believe that this is a great step forward. Thank you.
I'll agree with you, Jack. We don't want to lose people over this. So, call the roll.
Morrow,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Drennel,
Yes.
Colars.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Passes. So we get a recess now, or?
Mr. Chair, we need to conduct the Drainage Authority meeting at 10 o'clock because that is still officially a public hearing that will be continued, but we need to have that then. So we could have our Public Works Director
Sure.
present his items right now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Welcome, Seth.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff. One item from Public Works, and I would request a little extra time to give updates on our road projects for this year.
Thank you.
So the first item from Public Works is to consider a right-of-way acquisition resolution for project SP 052-614-010, and this would be right-of-way that we need to acquire for our County Road 14 disaster project. In your board packet, there is a resolution that would authorize the acquisition of that additional right-of-way that we need to complete that project. There's also a copy of the plat that shows the exact acreages of the right-of-way that we would be purchasing. If you look at the right-of-way plat, it looks like we're purchasing quite a large amount of right-of-way, but a lot of that area is already under existing prescriptive highway easement, and easements is how the county used to take control of those rights in the past. Today we convert those easements into fee titles. So when you do a property search, the road right-of-way actually shows up under the name of Nicollet County as being the fee title owner. And so there's a fair amount of this property, again, that's a prescriptive easement that will be converting into fee title right-of-way. So the resolution authorizes myself to move forward with making that acquisition. It also authorizes myself and the county attorney to utilize condemnation if need be. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions on this.
One question I have, Seth, is the stuff that you have the easement, that's a pretty low value for purchase?
Yes, we offer up $100 to the underlying fee title owner for their troubles going through the paperwork to make that conversion.
Mr. Chair, I'd move the resolution.
Second?
Any more questions, discussion? Anybody? Call the roll.
Kemp,
Yes.
Morrow,
Yes.
Lipke,
Yes.
Drennel,
Yes.
Kolars.
Yes.
Passes.
I'd also like to update the board on a little bit more on County Road 14. I do have a set of draft final plans and specifications sitting on my desk that I've begun review. SRF Consulting Group is our consultant that's doing the engineering work on this. So we're getting very close to having final plans done. There are some wetland investigation that has to be done this spring once the vegetation starts growing, but it's not it's not a very large amount of wetlands. It should go pretty simple. So we're hoping that we get all our ducks in a row here shortly and be able to advertise for this project by late spring or early summer.
Need a motion on this or not?
No, that was just informational.
Sure, thank you.
So our other projects that we have coming up, of course, County Road 12 reconstruction project and road raising through the flooded area. We have final plans completed. They've been submitted to MnDOT State Aid for final review. We're working through a couple tough items with right-of-way until we have right-of-way fully in our control, and then I have to sign off on a right-of-way certificate to the DOT. Until that is done, MnDOT and Federal Highway will not authorize the project to move forward. So we have one parcel that's owned by two private landowners that they have signed off accepting our offer for compensation, but we have been unable here recently to get in contact with them to get final signatures on the warranty deed, which until that is done, we do not have access to the property. We've made numerous calls over the last 3 weeks, and we're not getting a return call back. So I'm employing Commissioner Lipke to help make phone calls to see, to get them to at least respond to us. When they signed the offer letter, essentially saying they agreed to the compensation. So right now I'm kind of at a loss of what exactly the issue is, but hopefully we can get to the bottom of that and get that one signed off. One other right-of-way issue we're working through is the acquisition from the DNR. The DNR owns multiple properties along County Road 12, and those properties were bought by the DNR utilizing 3 different federal funding sources from 3 different federal agencies. And when the DNR receives funds of that nature to make those purchases, those federal agencies put requirements and restrictions on how that property can be used or sold in the future. And so the DNR has got to work through each one of those federal agencies to get release of that property. And there's one particular federal agency and funding source that has a special board that meets to review these acquisitions. Their next plan, and they meet infrequently, their next planned meeting isn't until May 27th. And when that board meets and they approve it, the approval doesn't become effective until 15 days after that, that group meets. I've had several discussions with the DNR in the last week. They are going to be pushing that federal agency to see if there's any way they can move that approval process up sooner. But if it can't be moved up sooner, and actually has to occur on May 27th, that may have some ripple effects on when, well, it definitely would have a ripple effect on when we can actually start the project. If we can't start by the middle of the summer with construction, and it gets a little bit into late summer or early fall, we'll have to retool exactly what we will want the contractor to complete for work this construction season. It's imperative that we complete the grade raise area and the surcharge, because once that surcharge is done, we'll have around 6 months or more of wait time for the settlement to occur. And so that's kind of the critical piece of County Road 12. It's going to be a 2 construction season type project anyway, and so some work may just have to be delayed into 2021. So that's the update on 12. Any questions?
You're just full of good news today, aren't you?
Oh yeah, it's
Seth,
never easy.
So with that decision in May, there's no way to start the bidding process ahead of that decision, right?
Oh no, we have to again have all the right-of-way in our possession. Then there's a form, a right-of-way acquisition certification form that I fill out and sign, attesting that we have acquired all the rights to the right-of-way, and then that goes into MnDOT and Federal Highway. They need that before they will authorize the project to move forward. After that, then we can start bidding.
So I know there's a lot of frustrated people
Oh,
out
yeah.
there, but we're doing what we can, and again, folks have heard this before, but our hands are tied until some of these decisions are made by other parties.
State and federal laws, basically.
Yeah, there just may be less work done on a wider piece of 12 this year than next year, depending on when we can actually start. But completion date of next year will probably pretty much stay the same.
I've been pulling up the fence.
Oh, good. Yep, that's good. Just one other thing to note about the other private property owners that we're trying to acquire that property. If we can't get a hold of them and resolve this very soon, the next step is I will have to work with the county attorney to start a condemnation proceeding to get access to that property, and that is usually a 90-day plus type time frame to work through.
Is there a time limit on when that could start? I mean, when I talk to these people, I tell them within a week or 5 days or?
Well, I would think if we can't get a hold of them within at least the next 2 weeks, I'll definitely be working with the county attorney to file that paperwork to get access. We haven't looked at this at all, condemnation for County Road 12, because they signed the intent or the offer early on. Typically, you only go into condemnation if you have a disagreement about compensation for that acquisition. We haven't had that, so.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would also reiterate that in addition to the time delay that would be caused as a result of needing to go through condemnation, there's a mandatory hold from the Supreme Court regarding district court actions, and I don't believe that a condemnation would fall under any of the emergency exceptions. And so folks just need to be aware that there's several delays that could happen. I'm not, if people have objections, they have objections, but I want people to be aware that there's a multiple ripple effect that could happen if it doesn't move forward by agreement.
Okay, thank you, and I guess that's not a surprise. Any questions for Seth, as long as we got him in the hot
Well,
seat?
it looked like you had some more there you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I have one other just quick update. It's for County Road 21 bridge project. We did have our pre-construction meeting with the contractor. If we receive normal precipitation between now and April 13th and Fort Ridgely Creek doesn't rise at all, the intent is to close the road and start construction on April 13th with that project.
Any other questions for
I
Seth?
just a brief question, since we're talking about 21. What's the status of the scour issue we had on 21 from the Minnesota River that we had discussed last fall?
Oh, right, close to Boydston Bridge.
Close to the Boisman Bridge.
We haven't noticed any further scour this year. The river is high.
Right.
Typically when we see sloughing or scour is once the river starts to to drop and the water starts to bleed out of the hill. A lot of the soils are kind of a sandy soil, and so they're sitting all completely saturated. When that water pressure starts to drop, that's when we see sloughing. But we haven't seen any additional erosion this year. But yesterday, the boring company was out to do their soil borings to get a nice soil profile. And so
That was gonna be my other question, because for a while we went from shallow to deep real quickly there, so.
yeah, well, we still need to get additional survey work in the channel, and we can't do that
Can't do
either
it yet,
until
right.
the river drops. But if Gale Tech Engineering can at least get the soil profile, they can do some work until we're able to get that additional survey. Yep.
Thank you.
Right. Anything else for Seth? I did meet with a gentleman yesterday on County Road 21, close to the Y intersection, and did point out that there is a sign that this says 7-ton weight limit, which is really easy to miss because you're going through the traffic circle and then there's 4 signs on the same post. And I think that's why a lot of trucks, one of the reasons a lot of trucks are going that way. And there's a no truck sign also, but that gets
Yeah.
ignored.
Well, I'm sure a lot of them just, there's no enforcement out there, and they can get away with utilizing it.
There has been a request to the law enforcement for more enforcement.
Yes, we've requested through State Patrol multiple times for their weight enforcement crew to spend some time out on County Road 21 to check weights. Now, one of the governor's declarations actually waived all load and spring posting requirements if that truck is hauling supplies needed for the virus pandemic. But if they're not hauling supplies related to the emergency work needed for the pandemic, they are to abide by the road postings.
Another question on that. If it's a local farmer hauling his grain into New Ulm or Mankato or whatever, is he still has got the weight limit,
Yes, he still has the weight limit.
but I mean, the no truck sign really wouldn't apply if that's his.
No, we allow them, they need to get their product in and
Right.
out.
Good.
Yep. We give special permissions as needed.
Okay, well, thank you.
Another note from Public Works is we did receive the delivery of our snowblower truck.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Has been delivered, so someday when we can all travel about, we'll take a field trip up to Public Works and see the machine, but road speed is 60, you said? You got it?
Yeah, McQueen Equipment delivered it, and they said they were able to drive at 61 miles an hour down here, so it can move
Get
pretty
over the
quick
other end
for
of
the
the county
size.
quickly then, can't we?
Yes.
Good.
We'd definitely be driving slower if we're needing to use it.
So the pickup, that'll have to wait till the ditch portion of the meeting, correct?
Correct.
You're done?
Yes, unless there's more questions.
So do we recess?
I think we have enough time, we should be able to finish your agenda and then,
Yeah, you want to finish commissioner reports, and then we
Sure.
can just
Yep.
go right into
Go
ditch
right into
authority,
it.
which won't take long.
right.
So that would be
Your-
myself. Well,
Yep.
I was at the workshop last week, and otherwise, a lot of things have been postponed. Couple things with constituents, but pretty quiet otherwise. Danny?
Again, workshop, we also had a meeting with the building committee for the Elixir building, which we did by teleconference for those who are available, and we appreciate that. We have more coming up. That's the reality of what we're all doing right now. And other than that, that's all I have.
Any report on the Elixir building?
We have a recommendation will go before the executive board in the short term. We have reached a verbal agreement with MRCI on handling the operational
Okay.
controls, which was what we were was the goal we were trying to seek. So that's what we're anticipating being able to do.
Okay. Terry?
I had the Elixir meeting as well, an Aqua meeting, the workshop you mentioned. if there are others, I could probably forget it.
I know what you mean. Marie?
Workshop, broadband, and life is just a little out of control in my world, so.
Forgot broadband, yes.
Oh, Jack, you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the Connect Nicollet County,
Oh, yeah,
Commissioner
you're
Kemp
all
and I
there.
had a CHS personnel meeting, a Minnesota Valley Action Council meeting, the board workshop from last week. Our Transportation Alliance meeting in St. Paul was canceled because of the pandemic. We had our GMG board meeting that was done through Zoom, and I've done some work at TDS. Also, I might mention that the AMC leadership in Nisswa for April 1st through the 3rd is being canceled, like many other things. Sitting here today, I wish I could be with you all. I mean, I'm not sick or anything, but I do have the sniffles, and it's just interesting to be able to communicate this way. It seems to me that there may be future meetings where more of us may be at home. I did this today as a precaution, and would look forward to seeing all of you again really soon from a safe distance.
Thank you, Jack. Ryan, Commissioner meetings and conferences?
Pretty much all conferences at the AMC level have been canceled or postponed till
Yep.
further notice.
Okay.
And everything else we're doing electronically where we can. Some have been delayed, but we'll continue.
We need per diems.
Move it. Move per diems and expenses.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes. So now we're just gonna recess until.
No, we're gonna adjourn, yes.
We're gonna adjourn now.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes, we're adjourned. We will start the drainage meeting in about 2 minutes.
Michelle,
Pardon?
do you have anything you wanted to report?
No, we're just continuing to adjust to different delivery of service and adjusting to the different Supreme Court orders that are coming out regarding court hearings and ensuring that we are abiding by the needs of those that need to be seen in court, but also recognizing the directives we've been given from the CDC and MDH. Lots of cooperation.
Mhm.
And appreciate our IT isn't here right now, but appreciate IT because we're all set up now to be able to work from home for some
I'm
of
sure
us.
that's been a big load for them getting there.
Yes, so I appreciate their work.
So we needed that extra person we hired.
Oh yes.
Mhm.
No doubt. I think we could start. My cell phone says 10 o'clock,
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Call the Drainage Authority meeting to order.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Nicollet County ditch number 77. Welcome,
Morning.
Jackie.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Morning, Jackie.
Strange that I come up here with no paperwork today. As you know, we did have a public hearing. It was going to be the final engineer's report for County Ditch 77 Lateral 2. Due to the restrictions of the COVID-19, I am asking you to open the hearing and then recess it until our next board meeting that is scheduled for April 14th at 10 o'clock. I would ask that we reconsider and reevaluate the situation that we're at on April 14th and decide if we are going to recess it again until a later date. But we'll keep touching base on this. Landowners have all been notified by letter that this is happening. I've had some phone calls and completely understand. So right now I'll be asking you to open the hearing and then recessing it till April 14th at 10 o'clock.
Consider it open.
Consider it open. Mr. Chair, I'd move to recess the meeting until
April
April
14th at 10.
At 10 a.m.
Sure.
At 10 a.m.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Everybody knows why we're doing this. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
It passes. Okay, now we got Seth again, probably?
Yes, my item is to consider replacement pickup for a ditch inspector. We had discussed this at the last board workshop, and as I indicated at that meeting, the ditch inspector's pickup is a 2013 model and has approximately 106,000 miles on it. The truck has gotten to the age, mileage, and condition that this is the time that we start looking at replacing these units, primarily to maximize resale value, so we can put that towards the replacement pickup. The replacement pickup with sales tax included is approximately around $40,000. With all our pickups, we typically get a much better sale price. We get a better sale price than trading the pickup in, and so we put these units up on MinBid, looking at Kelly Blue Book values for pickup of this age and mileage. We would be hoping to sell it for somewhere between $12,000 and $16,000, and so the net cost to be spread over all the ditch systems would be about $24,000 to $28,000. I just want to throw out this other little bit of tidbit of information, kind of put this in perspective. Probably 3 to 4 years ago, we made a change in how we do ditch spraying in the county. Before that time, half of the ditch systems were completely sprayed every year, and so that bill was around $20,000 to $25,000 that we'd spend alone on spraying every year. We changed that practice because not every square inch of every ditch needs to be sprayed. Plus, we were seeing some not as good as control as we were hoping, so we went to a spot spraying type of operation. So we've been saving those ditch systems a significant, probably $15,000 or so every year by not just blanket spraying. And so if you want to look at it that way, what we've been saving the ditch systems all these years will cover the cost of this replacement pickup. So I'm asking the board to authorize replacing the ditch inspector's pickup.
I'd move the authorization of purchase.
Second.
Any discussion? You said with the spraying, are you pretty much able to get the trees killed that are in the ditches? Or?
Several years ago, the board had approved a special spraying set up for the ditch inspector. I can't remember
a gel or?
Yeah, it's an induction type spraying system, and so it mixes the chemical, water, and an oil in, and it foams up, and Nate's able to spray that in a real nice direct stream quite a way, probably 50 to 75 feet, and so he can get real good coverage on those trees to kill them. And tree killage was a kind of a problem when we were doing the blanket broadcast spraying, because that was being sprayed by a helicopter, and you weren't really getting good coverage or not spraying at all near farmsteads and whatnot, and that's where some of the worst tree problems end up being, because we didn't want to kill their entire grove.
Sure.
Yep. It's been working pretty good.
Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Aye.
Right, thank you.
Okay, are we pretty much done?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.